Good morning, Rutgers High School. Good morning, scripture class. I'm very excited for tomorrow. We get to have our first actual virtual meeting, which isn't really actual at all. It's not very real, but I'm excited to see your guys' face tomorrow. Lots of things to be thankful for today. I hope you guys had a fantastic Easter weekend. I got lots of stuff done. I mowed my backyard, which was in desperate need of mowing. It was almost as long as my hair, which needs a cut. And then I dug a pipeline in my backyard, 70 feet long, and then I remodeled one of the rooms in my house. But nothing was as productive as Jesus winning over the weekend. It was awesome. Okay, I hope you guys had a great Easter celebration. It was beautiful. Even though we didn't actually get to go to Mass, it was great to spend time with family and eat lots of food. So, I'm in a bit of a time crunch today, which is why I'm shocked that I'm rambling. But let's be honest, I'm not very shocked that I'm rambling. Today we're talking about Acts of the Apostles. Okay? So, let's go ahead and get started. We already started with a prayer because you guys did your daily examen question and you took it very seriously and put your full effort into it, or else. And let's go ahead and begin. Okay. So what are we doing today? We are going to do a little bit of an Easter review. Actually, we're going to scratch that because I don't have much time. We are going to do a secret activity that if you are not watching this PowerPoint slides, you will not do. So, if you want to be really nice and you know there's somebody that's not watching the slides, you can text them. That's fine. There's nothing that stops me from doing that. So we're going to do that. We are going to talk about tomorrow. We are going to go through Acts 11, 12, 13, and 15. Exciting stuff. And your homework for tonight is to read Acts 17, 21, and 23. We are surging through Acts of the Apostles because we are going to have a test. Is it Thursday this week? Possibly. It's coming up quickly, though. Okay, so all your Book of John tests are graded. I was a little bit taken aback by the lack of depth in some of those tests. You had all the answers in front of you on PowerPoint slides. All you needed to do was go back and look through those. And you had the entire day to take the test. Some of you guys did a really great job, don't get me wrong. But others of you really could have gone more in depth. For example, something I went over several times. What does it mean that in the beginning the Word was with God? Who is the Word? Jesus Christ. If you just mentioned Jesus Christ, you got full credit on that question. Okay? All right. Let's go ahead and get started with our content for the day. I want to talk quickly about something I watched over the weekend. Maybe some of you guys have seen it before. It is called The Passion. It is a movie directed by Mel Gibson, I believe released in 2004, with Jim Caviezel starring as Jesus. Okay? So it is a very graphic movie. It goes through all of the torturing of Jesus, goes through the passion of Jesus. And I just wanted to point out that this was the first year where I was watching it and I could really understand and appreciate everything that was going on scripturally. So everything that happens to Christ along the way to his death has some kind of echo from the Old Testament or from some kind of prophet, right? So the earthquake, for example, that happens when he dies. This was prophesied in the Old Testament that when the Son of Man comes and judges the earth, right, there would be a giant earthquake, and that the temple would be split. Or at the end of the movie when the Roman guard sticks a spear in Jesus' side and there's water that flows forth. Well, in the Old Testament, Ezekiel predicted that water, right, would flow forth from the temple on the day that God judged all the nations, essentially. So, what is the temple then, or who is the temple? Jesus, right? Water is flowing from the temple. So it was cool to watch all that stuff, understanding the significance of it. Anyway, I just thought I'd share that. Okay, moving on. So, the secret activity is going to involve a new form of technology. I know you guys are probably getting overwhelmed from different teachers using different technology. I held out for a long time, not using any other technology except for Google Classroom, but this Flipgrid thing seems pretty easy, seems legit. So what you're going to do today is join the Flipgrid class. It's McEnany 9404. Got a nice catchy ring to it. You're going to join the class with your school email. Once you join the class, you'll see that I've put up a topic, and it's over St. Paul connection. All right. All you need to do is record a video of you finding something very random in your house and connecting it to St. Paul somehow. So I found some binoculars in my house, and I made a video connecting those binoculars to St. Paul. All right. And you will be graded on it. So make sure you get it done. All right. What are we doing tomorrow? Tomorrow, we get to actually see each other face to face, well, computer to computer, okay? I'm very excited to hear your energetic voices again, to have classroom discussion, to get your feedback on all this technology stuff. So we are going to join the class. You're going to treat it like a regular A day. So you'll have my class, 5th hour, or I guess, no, sorry, 4th hour. And we will kind of get some feedback, like I said, on how technology stuff is going. And then I'll ask you guys some questions, and we'll answer those questions. And I'll have some guidelines for how we should approach the class for that day. So that'll be the rock review class tomorrow. All right, let's jump into the content for today. Okay, so just a reminder, when we last talked about Acts of the Apostles, Peter had gone to a place called Joppa, and he had eaten with some Gentiles and baptized them, okay? So this is going to have some repercussions. He comes back, and people are like, Peter, you ate with Gentiles? Those people are unclean. They eat bacon. Also, can I have some bacon? Because that sounds delicious. All right, but people are upset, and he explains to them, right, part of Jesus' mission, right, was he hung out with unclean people all the time. And he communicated to us, right, that salvation was not only meant specifically for one group of people. All the way back to Abraham, right, Israelites are meant to bring salvation to the entire world, not just one group of people. And people are like, all right, sounds good for now, but we should at least maybe have a couple of restrictions, dietary restrictions for now. And Peter's like, okay, we'll have those for now. Meanwhile, Paul and Barnabas are kicking butt. They are traveling all around the world, mostly in Antioch, okay, which we're going to talk about on the next slide. But this Barnabas guy is essentially Paul's right-hand man, and he is working to convert Gentiles as well. All right, so they travel around together. They're a dynamic duo. All right, moving on. Acts 12. We have this new Herod, a new guy named Herod. So we have lots of Herods in this class. We have oldest Herod, who is the Herod that essentially killed all the babies when Jesus was born. We have the Herod who was alive and that killed John the Baptist. And now we have a new Herod who is the nephew of the guy who killed John the Baptist. And Herod is kind of just like a name like Caesar. You know, there's like a bunch of Caesars. It's like a throne name that you could take. Like we have Benedict the 16th, right? So Herod is like, I don't like all these new Christians causing up a stir. So he kills the second person murdered, the second martyr. He kills James, who was one of the original apostles, right? And he also puts Peter in prison, but Peter gets broken out by a miraculous angel. Pretty exciting stuff, okay? So Acts 13, we have a lot of stuff going on in this town called Antioch. Now, if you are from Overland Park, Shawnee, that area, you know that Antioch is a street name. That has nothing to do with the Antioch that we're talking about today, which is this town, right, this city, that was a pretty prominent city during this time period. And it was in modern-day Turkey. As you can see, it's pretty far north from Israel, but still along the Mediterranean Sea. So Antioch is where Paul and Barnabas spent a lot of time. Paul arrives in Antioch. He's like, I need to convert a lot of people. The first place he always goes when he gets to a town is the synagogue, which is where the Jews worship, right? So before they go out to convert Gentiles, first they always go try their hand with the Jews. Because, when you think about it, it makes sense because, right, Jesus fulfills a lot of the Old Testament prophecies. If you go up to a bunch of random people and you're like, you have to explain all the Old Testament first, and then you have to explain how Jesus fulfills the Old Testament. But if you go up to Jewish people, you're like, hey, you know all the prophets, all the old law. So it's a little bit easier this way. So that's Paul's strategy in convincing people. In Acts 14, we didn't read that. Paul gets stoned. No, he does not get stoned like modern day people get stoned, right? People try to kill him with stones by throwing rocks at him. And apparently they don't do a good enough job because he wakes up and feels fine and goes back into the city and gets right back on his horse and tries again. So that's Acts 14. Acts 15, last topic of discussion for today. There is still some disagreement amongst the early Christians. Do people need to become Jewish before they become Christian? AKA, do people need to be circumcised before they become Christian? You can imagine this is a pretty big topic of conversation, right? People are pretty passionate about this. So, this is the real first church council, okay? This is happening in Antioch. There's a thriving church there now. And Peter stands up and he recounts his journey in Joppa. He explains, right, everything that happened in the Old Testament. He explains again, right, how the mission of Abraham, the mission of all the Old Testament prophets was that the whole world was meant to be saved, not just the Jewish people. And the most important part he points out is that who saved us, or what saved us, right? What brings us salvation? Is it the law, or is it faith in Jesus Christ? And he brings up, it is the grace of God and the grace of Jesus, right? Not the law that is the ultimate saving factor. And this kind of stretches back all the way to the Old Testament. If you remember Cain and Abel, right? Both Cain and Abel gave sacrifices to the Lord, right? But God knew, right, that Cain's sacrifice was not faithful because Cain had been, in his heart, he was unfaithful to God. So it doesn't matter that we are necessarily going to church, having all the sacraments, right? Those things are good, right? And we need those, and they're important for us. But if we do all those things without faith, then we basically are not doing anything at all. So that's Peter's point. So it's grace, not the law, that saves us. And last thing about Acts chapter 15 is that Paul and Barnabas break up. Very sad. They are in disagreements about this guy named Mark, aka the gospel writer Mark. So the gospel writer of Mark, he's kind of traveling with Paul, right? And Barnabas does not like Mark, essentially, and Paul likes Mark, and they break up. And so they go their separate ways. They are angry at each other. And that's how Acts chapter 15 ends. Remember to do your homework for tonight, guys. Remember to post on Flipgrid. And you guys have a wonderful Easter Tuesday. Good luck. God bless. See you later.